All right, so now that we've got some of our header stuff set up, one of the things we need to figure out is how we are going to get the content that is up underneath the header to show up. If you remember, if I go and inspect this content, if I come up here and find where it says div ID equals content, it's selecting everything, and you can kind of see that, in fact, that it's up underneath the header. And if you wanted to be really clear about what's, being hidden under there, if I click the header and just make a temporary rule over here that says opacity, let's go ahead and add opacity, and we can do like 0.5, and you can kind of see as I lower the opacity that it's showing this sticky template. It's like got the beginning of the post, and it's got the archive list up under here, and it's being thrown up there underneath the header, if you remember, because we made the header have a position that's fixed, and the background, or excuse me, fixed, and then it's got a high Z index, and it's got top 0. And so if I were to take off that position like that, you see that it goes down beneath, but then everything ends up scrolling, right? And so I want to make sure that that position stays fixed, so that as I scroll, the header will stay up on top. But the problem is that if I don't have that opacity like that, right, it's got a bunch of stuff hidden up underneath there. And so there are some different ways that you could deal with this. If you did not make your graphic scalable right here, where like the Canon Electric is scalable, so that it ends up determining, a good part of the height for the header, then like if this is fixed, if the fixed pixel size, and it doesn't get really any bigger or smaller except for maybe every so often when a media query kicks in, then you could do something really simple, like you could come over here to where it says content for the ID content, or we could target the site content class. So if I clicked over here while I've got that selected right here for site content, I could click on plus, and it's going to grab the content ID. But if I wanted, I could also say site dash content for the class, and it still targets the same thing. I could go ahead and add padding top, and then just say like maybe 200 pixels or whatever, and then it jumps down so that we can see it. Well, the problem though with this, and if I were to do like 250 pixels for instance, you can start to see some of the background image. The problem though with doing something like this, however, is that if you don't have this picture up here fixed, then what ends up happening is as I scale, you notice that this isn't changing, right? It's a fixed pixel dimension, and then if I were to get on a really large screen, I'm probably going to end up much in the same ballpark. And you end up having this is probably, oops, this is probably okay, but then if you didn't like what happened over here, whenever it gets down here, if this starts to get to be too much of a gap, I guess you could write some media queries and stuff like that to kick in. But there is another way that you can deal with this, and I'm going to show you another way of approaching this so that you're not having to worry about this changing dimension. And I'm going to hit refresh, and you see it goes back underneath there. And what we're going to do is we're going to use some JavaScript to get the height of this header so that we can basically just add the padding to this that's based on that constantly changing height for the header. Okay, and so and you can use this in lots of different applications, not just if you used something that is exactly like mine. It would work for a lot of different applications. So I'm going to come over here to Dreamweaver, and let's go into our files, and you want to make sure that you're connected so that we can use the get and put, mainly the put command, to upload our stuff as we change it. All right, and the thing that we're going to need is, first of all, we're going to need to find our functions file, which is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and open that, because we're going to have to on-queue a new script that we're going to write. And I'm going to go ahead and make a new file. Let's go new, and we'll call it JavaScript. We'll create it, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to go ahead and save it in my file system. And I'm going to save it inside my JavaScript folder, which is right here. And I'm going to call this clear-header so that it helps me understand that this is the script that's going to clear the header. It's going to help the content clear the header. So we'll hit save, and we can get going on what we're going to type. But before I do anything, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and I'll on-cue this. And so for the moment, if I come over here to functions, we're going to scroll down and we're going to find the place where we started on-queuing some JavaScript. And if you look, we've got, this is our navigation, and we've got, we've got the place. Let's see where we do modernizer. Yeah, here's modernizer, here's respond. I'll go ahead and I'll load it right after I have the respond JS loading. So I'll come down here and I will make a new comment, and we'll put clear dash header, oops, header. And then I'll put a little comment out here that says, in parentheses, that says, this script gets the header. Well, let's put site header height, and uses value to pad top of content to clear the fixed header. Okay. All right. So there's my comments, and the first thing that I'm going to do, see, this is going to be a little bit different because this stuff is going to have a dependency, unlike right now modernizer and respond .min.js don't. We're actually going to write some stuff that's in jQuery, so we're going to have a dependency that is relying on the jQuery library. So first I'm just going to I'm going to copy this. Let's just say that I'm going to copy this line right here. I'm going to have to change some things. I'm going to paste it though. And all right, so here we're saying WP onQ script. The first thing that I want to do is I want to register the script because it's going to be a new script, and I'm going to change it. It's not Topcat respond. We're going to give it a new handle. So it's going to be, let's call it Topcat clear dash header. All right, so, and then we still have to get the template directory URI, and then we're looking in the JS folder still, but now we're going to find a file that's called clear-header, which we already made an empty version of, right? This is our clear header file, and it's in this directory, the JS directory. And then where it says array, this is where we put stuff that might be a dependency. And for WordPress, if you want to go and find whatever the jQuery is that it's being loaded, it already works natively with jQuery, and so all we have to do here is type jQuery, just like that, and it's going to look for whatever jQuery library is loaded up, and it looks at that as the dependency. And here, instead of the word false, I'm going to put I'll put a version, and I'll just call it 1.0. That'll be the new version for our clear header file that we're going to create. And so it's going to register it. And so now what I'll have to do is I need to actually on-queue it. So I am going to copy part of this. I'll copy the very first part. And I've registered that script. Now I'm going to on-queue it. And let's go ahead and end that. And we'll say that we're going to on-queue this script here that's called Topcat clear header. All right, so it's looking for that handler. So first we register the script, all right, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and on-queue it. All right, and so and that allows me to load with this dependency. I could just on-queue it, but I also want to just show you that you can register scripts and then you can also on-queue them right after. So, and there are some advantages. I'm not going to go deeply into why. This can be better to register it before you on-queue it, but it just means that you're able to use it in more places and with kind of more universality inside of the WordPress document. So let's go ahead and I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go ahead and put this up on the server, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the clear-header file up on the server. Let's go ahead and do that too. All right, and then the next thing I can do, I haven't changed anything, but I can come over here and I can refresh the file. It's not going to look any different, but if I go down here and I do an inspection in the Chrome inspector or whatever inspector you're using, I can come and look down at the bottom and see all of the different things that are being pulled in. And you can see here where it says clear header, you can see that it is on queuing that. And if I want to right click that, I can open in a new tab, and you see that it shows me my JavaScript document, and that's just a comment. I don't have anything else there. So it's working, right? It's on queuing a script file for me. Now we just need to actually write the script. So one of the things that we can do, let's just jump back over here, is we can start to write some basic jQuery. And one of the things that you might right off the bat want to do is get the document ready. And so a really common way that you're going to do that is you're going to do something like, you're going to have document, if you've ever, done much of this, and then you would do .ready, right? That's what it would be looking for. And then you would be putting in the function as the object. So you would type in function, and then you would do something like this, and you would go ahead here and you would end up down here closing it, and then whatever would happen in here would happen whenever the document is ready. Well, that is normal, like a normal syntax for jQuery in a normal file. Let me go ahead and tell you right now that if you do this, it's not going to work, right? And if I were to put anything in here, let me just show you what would happen, and then I'll show you how to fix it. Okay, so let's do something where we're just talking to the console for a minute. Let's do console log, and we'll just call that out, okay? And then we'll say something. We'll say echo, or we'll say something here, okay? Say something here. Let's do that. So let's say something here. Okay, and let's just do a save real quick. And you see that it's, oh, and then also you see I get a little red line number, and it says missing use strict statement. That's a new thing now that it always is going to tell you to do. So it's a really simple thing. You would, in parentheses, you would say use strict. Okay, and then go ahead and terminate that, and then save it, and then that error should go away. This is something you're always going to be prompted to do inside of your function. Anyway, so let's just say that this is what we've got. We're going to put this up on the server, and let's go into our Canon Electric. Let's do another refresh on here, and if I right click and I do an inspection, let's go over to actually, let's make sure that it's loading properly first. So if we scroll to the bottom, we can find where it is loading that clear dash header JavaScript. I'll open it in a new tab, and you can see that in fact it is showing me right here. Now the other thing that I can do is I can click on my console, and right here you see it says that there's an uncaught type of error, and it's saying this dollar symbol is not a function, and it's not giving me something valid. That is because just so you know, that is because WordPress requires that this dollar symbol has to literally say jQuery. So we would type in jQuery here, and I'm going to cut the dollar symbol out. I'm actually going to put the dollar symbol here inside of the function, and then over here I'm going to type jQuery, and I need to give, in this particular case, I do capitalize the Q. Whereas over here in functions, I did not capitalize the Q in the array whenever I was calling the dependency. And let me show you why just really quickly right here in the dependency, why I didn't capitalize it. And just really quick, if I jump over here, let's go ahead. And then I opened a new tab over here, and I went to the developer.wordpress.org website, and there's a thing for WP OnQ script, and it actually is a reference page, and I have a link to this on our class website for this assignment. But if you scroll down, you'll see that it says lower on the page, it says default scripts that are included and registered by WordPress are, all right, and then it has some different ones that have defaults, and it has the different handles that you can use for that. And in this case, the whole full jQuery library right here, the handle is jQuery, it's lowercase. All right, but just so you understand, that is the reason why. It's because it's a predefined handle that WP OnQ script already has set up that it recognizes. Okay, but anyway, So I just wanted to point that out. So when you're on-queuing the script and you need to call a dependency for jQuery's library, you don't capitalize that Q. Over here, the syntax, you should capitalize the Q. All right, so anyway, what I did to change that is instead of putting that dollar symbol here, I went ahead and I changed it to be explicit, calling the jQuery document, so that whenever it's saying, okay, when the jQuery document is ready, we're going to load this following function, and basically this creates an anonymous function. It's an unnamed function. That's what an anonymous function is. And so let's save that. Let's upload it. And oh, it's telling me that I have an error here. Hold on. Okay, and then if I hover, oh, it's just telling me that the dollar symbol is defined but never used. That's actually okay, because this is the way that WordPress requires us to do it. So let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to put it up on the server. And if we come back up here now, and I'm going to do a refresh on the page. And now that we're still in the console, you see here on line 4, it is giving me what I'm looking for, which is say something here. So it's working and it's not throwing any errors once it's actually on the server. So we're all good. Now we can actually feel comfortable about going here and starting to use, our script to do some functional stuff with it. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and leave this console log here, and I'm going to adjust it. And what we're going to say here instead of say something here is we'll say, let's do like the site header height is, and then I'll put a space there, and then I'll show you here in just a second what we're going to do. I'm going to create a new variable, so I'll say var, and I'm going to call it height. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to say a new variable height is going to be equal to, and this is where I can define which height I'm going to get. So whenever I do that, I'm going to, in this case, I do put the dollar symbol like this, and then I'm going to put the dot, and we're going to invoke the height function. And right in here is what we need to put in here is the name of the basically the CSS thing that we're targeting. So let's take a quick look at what it is that we're targeting specifically. If we go over here to our elements and we look at the name of, let's go ahead and right click inside of the header somewhere. We're going to inspect it. And if we click on this header, it says ID masthead. We could use that, or we could use the class of site header. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say, I'm going to target the header whose class is site header. So if I come over here, I can say header dot site header, and I could just say site header. I think that'll probably work too if I just get rid of that. I can just look for the class of site header because it only exists in one place. Like I said, you could also call the ID of masthead if you wanted, because they're both used in this particular case. And so here I'm going to, on the console log, let's say the site header height is, and then over here right after the quotation mark, I'm going to put a plus symbol, which is going to concatenate in JavaScript, or in jQuery, that's going to concatenate, and then I'll just use the height variable, and so it'll give me the height because I've just defined what the height is right here. So let's save that, and we'll upload that. And this is sort of showing you how you can progressively build your script and see what it's doing. Let's do a refresh on here, and I'll click on console, and here it says the site header height is 215. Pretty cool, right? Well, what that means is that I can use that site header height, and I can actually add that. Let's go down here, and we're going to, what we need to do is write some jQuery that's going to allow us to change the CSS for the content. If we want to look over here, and let's just make sure that we've got the right thing that we're calling it. So right here where it says div ID equals content, remember that was the thing whenever we said, okay, if we let's do the class of site content. And the reason I'm doing it that way is because you're going to find in the style sheet that that's more commonly used than is the content ID. So we'll do site content, and let's just, to make sure that we're targeting the right thing, we'll say padding top is, I don't know, I think we used 250 pixels before, and you can see that that is the correct thing to target. Okay, so we'll target the site content. So let's go ahead here, and we'll get this started where we say we're going to affect the CSS. That is going to be a function, and let's go ahead and say that the target is going to be, as I said, site-content. All right, so that's the thing whose CSS we're going to change. And the way that the CSS thing is going to work in jQuery is it passes off two properties. It needs two arguments. The first one is going to be the name of the property. All right, and so in that case, the name of the property is going to be padding top that we're adjusting, and then you would put a comma, and then the second argument that you pass is going to be the value that you're passing into the padding top property. So the value of that, okay, in this case then would be, if we just said height, we can just do that. Let's start with height, but I don't want to put that in quotation marks because height is a variable, and so it'll show up here as white because it's a variable, right? So I can just say, for right now, let's just say height, and we'll save that, and we can put that up there, and let's go test it, and we'll come and do a refresh on this page. All right, and look what it did. See how template sticky is now no longer up underneath here? It's because, see how it's giving that an element style? The element style is being added as an inline style directly on the element because we're using JavaScript to add that dynamically, which is pretty cool. And so if I wanted that to not just cinch right up to the top, then what I could also do is I could add some value at the end. And and I need to make sure I'm doing it in the right spot. I don't want to change the console. I need to make sure I'm doing it up here where I'm actually changing the CSS. So I do something like height, and then you add a plus symbol, as I said before. You know, in this case, the plus symbol is actually going to add it because I'm going to add a numeric value. So if I put 50, I don't need to put px at the end. It knows that it's going to be pixels. So I'll save this, and let's put that up there, and we'll do a new test. Let's do a refresh on the page, and you see that it bumps it down and adds some extra space right here, which is pretty nice. Now, that works really great on page load, but then look what happens. We still run into the same exact problem, is that it's remembering it only on the initial scale. So what we can do then is we can come down here, and we still need to initially load it like that, right? But the next thing that we can do is we can create something that's on resize. So I'm going to just kind of take this right here. I'm going to copy this for a moment. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come down, and inside of my document ready function, I'm going to add a function inside of that function so that it listens for a resize, okay? And it's an event handler. And so let's just come down here and we'll close that. But instead of document ready, we're going to do resize like this. Oops, not resize. Okay, and the other thing is that it's not going to happen on the document. We're actually looking to see that the window has been resized. So we're looking to check for a window resize, and then we're going to run a function based on that. And here's the thing, we can actually do exactly the same thing. Let's copy this up here, and we're going to just tab it in, and then we'll paste this. And the reason that this is going to work just fine is because it's only going to happen if the window then is resized after the fact. All right, and so we can still, keep the same exact, create a new variable called height, because this one will have already been used once, so we can just reassign it and use exactly the same thing. But here, instead of saying the site header height is, we'll say the site header resized height is now like that. Okay, and then let's save that, and then every time it resizes and let's take unnecessary use. I guess I don't need to use strict there. Okay, and let's see what this error is telling me. If it tells me what the error is, it's not giving me the error. Let's see what's wrong. The end of the document, oh, I see what it is. It's looking for me to end this function. See, there's the original function. It was in red. So what I need to do then is I need to end that function, because I had only copied the very beginnings of this. I didn't copy the part that ended it, which was down here. Okay, so this is where this function will end. If I save it, those error messages go away. All right, so now let's upload that and let's do a test. We'll put that up there. And let's do a refresh here. Okay, and it still works. Now let's see if we resize it. And is it resizing? It doesn't seem to be. Let's look at our console and see what's going on. It says that there's an error. Let's take a look. Oh, and you know what? It says in this particular case, it's looking for the dollar symbol. It's saying it's not a function, so I need to get rid of this one in this particular case. All right, so let's save that. And this is where that console is super, super helpful. And I'll put that up there. Let's do a new refresh. And okay, now it's not giving me errors. It says the site header height is 198. And then in my console, as I resize, look what's happening. It keeps giving me all these new resize values, and it's maintaining this same distance consistently, which is great. It's exactly what I want it to do. All right. So that's how I can get all of this information in the content area to clear that fixed size header consistently. And if I wanted, I could even do something where, I'm checking to see what the screen dimension is. If I, on a mobile view, maybe I want this to snap all the way up or something. I don't want this space there. That's kind of up to you if you don't want that. And you can make that decision on your own. And then what you would need to do is you would need to write some stuff where it's looking to get the size of the window, and you could decide whether or not you wanted that to snap up there.